Hello everyone, welcome back to ESL DRILL. I am MNB ACHARI. In this video, let's discuss the lesson Environment, which is part of the unit Biodiversity. Okay, let's get into the lesson now. Well, this is an interview with Wangari Maathai, an environmental activist and Nobel Peace Prize winner. Let me read this part. Wangari Maathai started the Green Belt movement and also fought for equal rights for women in Africa. She is the first African woman to win the Nobel Peace Prize. Read the excerpts from her interview with Nippon Hoso Kyokai, NHK Radio, Japan, which was held in 2004. Let's look at what Green Belt movement is. That's a movement for environmental conservation. So in order to protect and conserve environment, community development and capacity building. So especially building the capacity of people, especially women. Professor Wangari Maathai established the organization in 1977. That's Green Belt movement, a movement to conserve or to preserve environment. Now look at this word excerpts. So this is plural. Now if you take a look at the singular form of it, excerpt, it's a short piece taken from a book, a poem, piece of music, etc. Here, the lesson that we have now or that we are discussing now is a part of the real interview that was held by NHK Radio. Okay, so that's an interview with Wangari Maathai. This is not the full interview, this is just a part of the interview. Let's proceed further. Here is the first question asked by NHK Radio. How did you become aware of the environment? Here is Wangari Maathai's reply. From the time we started, we were trying to respond to the basic needs of people in the rural areas, and people were asking for clean drinking water, for food, for energy, which is mostly firewood, for building material, for fodder for the animals. And all these come from the land. So, we knew that what the people in the rural areas were asking for had to do with the environment. They did not have those things because the environment was degraded. So, from the very beginning, we understood that we have to rehabilitate the environment. Look at the question here, how did you become aware of the environment? It means, how did you know of the environment? Or how did you come to know about the problems in the environment? And Maathai's reply is this. She said that from the time they started this Green Belt movement, they were trying to respond to the basic needs of people. So what were the basic needs of people in the rural areas? Clean drinking water, that's easy to understand. Food, and for energy as well. For energy, which is mostly firewood, wood used for cooking. And for building material, so for construction purposes, they needed wood. For fodder for the animals. What is fodder, by the way? Food for animals is called fodder. And all these things come from the land. Now the problem here is, all these things come from the land and the people in the rural areas were not able to get these things from the land. It means what they were asking for had to do with the environment. It means was related to the environment. Whatever they were asking for has to do with the environment. It means was related to the or is related to the environment. It's connected to the environment. They did not have those things because the environment was degraded. What is the meaning of was degraded here? It means lost its quality. The environment was degraded means the environment lost its quality, original quality. So from the very beginning, Maathai and her team understood that they had to rehabilitate the environment. What is the meaning of rehabilitate? It means to bring back something to the previous healthy state, earlier healthy state. Earlier, the environment was very good and it was degraded now. That's why Wangari Maathai and her team wanted to bring the environment back to its original and healthy state. Okay, let's move further and then know more. Let me read these first. The forested mountains were the source of water and the source of rain. So when you deforest, you cause a shortage of water and a change of rainfall patterns, and therefore people are not able to get food and water. Therefore, in order for them to have good environment that can sustain their livelihoods, it's important to have a government that accounts to them, that protects their interest, that is concerned about their lives. NHK Radio's question: how is peace connected to a good environment? Maathai's reply: many wars that are fought in the world are fought over natural resources. Some wars are fought because the environment is so degraded that it is not able to support communities, and so they fight over the little that is left. Others are fought because some people want to take a lot of the resources to control them and to keep many other people out. Now, this is the continuation of Maathai's answer to the first question asked by NHK Radio. She said, the forested mountains were the source of water and source of rain. What is the meaning of source? Source is a place where we get something from. It means we get water and rain from forested mountains, means mountains full of forest, full of trees. And that is why when you deforest, you cause a shortage of water and a change of rainfall patterns. So what is deforest? Means cut down and destroy all the trees in a place. Now, when we destroy all the trees in a particular place, we cause shortage of water. We don't get much water. And there is going to be a change of rainfall patterns. It means rains do not happen. We don't get rains as and when needed. It means here according to the a particular pattern of rainfall that we get, it doesn't happen, and therefore people do not get food and water. So in order to have good environment which can sustain their livelihoods, sustain means here support or provide for. Now we need to have a good environment. What kind of good environment? Good environment which can sustain, which can support our livelihoods, which can help us survive. It is important to have a government that accounts to them. Look at this here, account to means is responsible. Now we need to have a government which is responsible, so which takes care of us, that protects us and that protects our interests and that is concerned about our lives. The government that shows concern for our lives. Now, NHK Radio asks, how is peace connected to a good environment? Maathai, how is peace connected to a good environment? It means, what is the relation between peace and a good environment, or a good environment and peace? So according to NHK Radio, how can we get peace if we have good environment? Okay, let's see Maathai's answer. Many wars that are fought in the world are fought over natural resources. Some wars are fought because the environment is so degraded that is not able to support communities, and so they fight over that is left. Okay, see here, Maathai says that many wars that are fought in the world these days are for natural resources, like, water. That's the best example and basic example. So people fight for natural resources all over the world. Some wars are fought because the environment is so degraded, means the environment lost its quality, and that is why it is not able to support communities. So here communities are different groups of people living in a particular area. Now, because of the fact that the environment is degraded, because of the fact that environment lost its quality, it cannot support people living in a particular area. And that is why people start fighting over the little that is left, the little of the natural resources. Only a few natural resources are available, and that is why people fight for them. And the other wars are fought. The other wars are fought because some people want to take a lot of the resources, to control those resources, and to keep many other people out. So look at this here, keep people out means to stop people from getting something, or to prevent people from getting something. Some people want to have lots of resources for themselves, and they try to control those resources, and they keep other people out, means they are away from these resources. That's why those people who cannot get those resources try to fight. So far we have discussed two reasons why wars take place in the world. Okay, that's for natural resources, because in particular in some areas natural resources are not available, and in some areas natural resources are taken control of by only a few people. Okay, I hope you have understood. Let's move forward. Now, whether this happens at the national level or at the regional level or even at the global level, sooner or later there is discontent. And when the discontent is strong enough, there is conflict. So, good management of the natural resources, equitable distribution of these resources is important for peace. At the same time, good management of the natural resources is not possible if you do not have democratic space, respect for human beings, respect for human rights, giving other people dignity. That is why the three themes are related, like the African stool, with three legs and the basin on which you sit. The three legs are, one leg is peace, the other leg is good governance, the third leg is sustainable management of resources. When you have those three legs, you now can put the basin, which is development. And if you try to balance that stool without those three, it won't happen. Let's get back to this paragraph. Now, whether this happens at the national level or at the regional level or at the even at the global level. Now here this refers to the fact that people fight for natural resources. People fighting for natural resources, whether that happens at the national level, at a country level, or at the regional level, in the area that people live, or even at the global level, internationally. So at any stage, if that happens, if people start fighting for natural resources, sooner or later, maybe now, if not now, in the future, near future, there is discontent. Look at this word discontent. It means dissatisfaction. They have dissatisfaction. They don't like that. And when the discontent is strong enough, so when the dissatisfaction becomes stronger, there is conflict. What is the meaning of conflict? They start disagreeing with one another. There is disagreement and there is going to be fight. So, what do we need? We need good management of the natural resources. It means managing or using the natural resources in a good way so that they last for a long time. They exist for a long time. See here, if you have resources and you think that they are available in plenty, and if you start using that without any discrimination, you will soon run out of them. It means you will not have any natural resources left. You will be in trouble. So we need to learn to manage natural resources in a good way so that they last longer, they exist longer. Now, not just that, we need to have this equitable distribution of these resources. Means equitable means here equal, fair. Very good. Distribution of these resources. Fair distribution. Equal distribution of these resources. Just imagine if everybody in a community has access to all the resources, there is no problem at all. There is no dissatisfaction, and that dissatisfaction does not lead to conflict because everybody enjoys the natural resources. And these things are important for peace. So if a particular area has to have peace, there must be good management of natural resources and there must be equal distribution of these resources. This word is pronounced equitable. Okay, at the same time, this peace, achieving peace is not possible when you do not have good management of the natural resources. Or good management of the natural resources is not possible if you do not have democratic space. What is democratic space? Look at this here. That's belief that people should have equal rights. Now, if you don't believe, or if people do not believe that everybody has to have access to natural resources, it means there is no democratic space. And if that does not happen, there is no respect for human beings, and there is no respect for human rights, and if we do not give other people dignity, good management of the resources is not possible. What is giving other people dignity here? Look at this. Giving other people the respect that they deserve. Everybody deserves respect. Everybody has rights. If you do not allow them to have their rights, if you do not have respect for human beings, if you do not give the people the respect that they need, it's not possible. Good management of the resources is not possible. That is why Wangari Maathai compares the three themes to an African stool. Let's look at what an African stool is, and then what those three themes are and how they are related to the legs of African stool. Look at this here. This is an African stool with three legs, a three-legged African stool. Now what you have here, the base, that's called basin, on which you sit. See here, this is basin. This basin can be balanced only when you have these three legs. If you do not have one of these three legs, this basin cannot be balanced. And Wangari Maathai compares these three legs to three ideas, three themes. What are they? Peace, good governance, sustainable management of natural resources. So just like basin cannot be balanced with one of these legs missing, development cannot be achieved or cannot be made with one of these missing. So you need to have these three in order to have development in a particular area. So what are they? Peace, good governance, and sustainable management of natural resources. Let's start here. Sustainable management of natural resources. So it means managing the natural resources available in a good way so that they exist for a long time, so that people can use the resources for a long time. And to make it possible, we need to have good governance. Imagine if there is no governance that takes care of this one, making sure that the resources are available for a long time. If there is no good governance, if there is no good government, this management is not possible. And if these two things happen, there is a possibility for peace, because once people understand that there are many resources available and then they exist for a long time, and there is a good government that takes care of this, people are not afraid, they are not dissatisfied, they have peace. There is no fight, and that is why there is peace. So what we understand from this is, in order to have development in an area, you need to have all these three ideas, or three things, three themes. I hope you have understood. Let's get back to the lesson. Let me read this. We have not shared our resources equitably. We have allowed some people, especially those in power, to acquire a lot at the expense of the majority. And we have also engaged in conflict. NHK Radio says, what was the environment like when you were young, and how did you go about saving it? Maathai's reply. When I was a child, which is almost more than 50 years ago, the environment was very pristine, very beautiful, and very green. We were a British colony, and the British government at the time started to clear-cut the indigenous forest in our forested mountains because they wanted to establish commercial plantations of exotic species of trees such as the pines from the northern hemisphere and the eucalyptus from Australia. Now here, so as a reply to the earlier question, Maathai said this: we have not shared our resources equitably, means in a fair way and in an equal way. That's why some people, like landlords, they have a lot of land, and there are some people who do not have land at all. So we have not shared our resources equitably in an equal way. And moreover, we have allowed some people, especially those people in power, the leaders we elect in the elections, we have allowed them to acquire, means to get a lot of natural resources because they have the power. We choose them in an election and we give them power, and those people take a lot of our resources. How do they do that? At the expense of the majority. Look at the meaning here. By harming majority of the people, by not allowing the majority of the people to enjoy those resources, they keep a lot of resources for themselves. And we have also engaged in conflict. Now we are fighting. We are fighting because we have disagreements. We are not fighting together. We are not united. Now, next question. What was the environment like when you were young? So look at this question. What was the environment like? It means, how was the environment? How was the environment when you were young, Maathai? Let's look at this here. How was the environment when you were young? Maathai said, the environment was very pristine, means extremely fresh and clean when she was a child, when she was young. Very beautiful and very green. She also said that they were a British colony. So British colony is an area controlled by the British people. It's not now, it was there before India got independence. So British people formed colonies, established colonies here, and they were ruling us. So in one of the colonies, this Wangari Maathai lived. And the British government decided to clear cut, completely remove the indigenous forest. Indigenous means local. Here, the British people decided to clear cut, completely cut the local forests. Look at this indigenous local here. And they wanted to establish commercial plantations. Commercial means for business purposes. Plantations means large areas with trees. So they wanted to grow plants for commercial purposes, for business. Now what kind of plantations did they want to grow? Exotic species. Species are types of plants here. Exotic species means unusual species. So they wanted to grow unusual and rare kind of plants for business purposes. So what were they? They started growing pine trees. So you can have a look at that on the screen, pine trees. And from the northern hemisphere, and the eucalyptus from Australia. Have a look at eucalyptus tree and eucalyptus leaves here. So they started growing these. We'll know more about why these trees were good and why they grew them. Look at this here. Pine is a forest tree with leaves like needles. Okay, let's move. These trees are very nice. They grow tall and they grow very fast. But as they grow, they destroy all the local biological diversity. All the flora and fauna disappear. So, although we were getting commercial timber for the growing timber industry, we also destroyed our local flora and fauna. As a result, these forests, which were the water towers, were no longer able to contain the water. So, when the rains fell, the water ran downstream and ended up in the lakes and ocean instead of going down into the underground reservoir, so that it could come back to us in the form of rivers. One thing we noted is that not only did the rain patterns change, became less, but also the rivers started drying up. We lost our local biological diversity. So that's a lot of damage to our environment. Look at this here. These trees refer to the pine trees and the eucalyptus trees. These trees grew very tall and they grew very fast. Even now they grow tall and they grow very fast. But what happened was, these trees do not allow other small plantations to grow. As a result, they destroyed local biological diversity. Look at the meaning here. The variety of plants and animals in a particular place. Now these trees were grown, and these trees grow very tall and fast. They become big in size, and that is why they destroyed all the local flora and fauna. Flora means plants, fauna, animals. So local flora, small plants and bushes were destroyed. So all the animals that depended on that flora disappeared. So although we were getting timber, means wood for business purpose, we destroyed local biological diversity, local flora and fauna. Maathai says that these forests were actually water towers. I mean, they were the source of water. We have already discussed it. And as a result of the local biological diversity getting damaged, these forests were no longer able to contain the water. Means here they were not able to stop the water. They were not able to hold the water. What happens if there are forests? If rainwater is contained, stopped or held, the rainwater can go into the earth, I mean into the underground, natural underground reservoir. Reservoir is an artificial lake in which water is stored. But here we are talking about natural underground reservoir. Now, our earth can actually take a lot of water. So water can sink into the earth. That is natural reservoir. Now, what happens is, if water goes into the natural reservoir, into the earth, it can come back in the form of rivers again. So it did not happen because forests were cut down. And that was why we understood that the rain patterns changed and rains became less, and also the rivers started drying up. We lost our local biological diversity, and that's a lot of damage to the environment. Let's move. That is why in 1975, at the very first United Nations Conference for Women in Mexico, many of the women were saying, we need food, we need water, we need clean drinking water, we need fodder for our animals. And I was wondering, what has happened? These are things that were there 20 years ago when I was a child. The environment had changed. And that's when I started this campaign to restore the vegetation and to restore the land and to rehabilitate the forest. So, in 1975, United Nations Conference for Women, a meeting for women was held in Mexico. And Mexico is a country, and the capital city is also Mexico. Many of the women were asking for basic things. We discussed this at the beginning. That's it. And Maathai wondered, why? What has happened? Why are these people not able to get the basic things from the environment? And she realized that it was because of the fact that the environment was degraded. The environment lost its quality. It has changed. And that is when she decided to start this campaign. Campaign is a series of planned activities. Like, she decided to plant trees. She decided to teach people the importance of planting trees, growing trees. She wanted to restore, means bring back the vegetation, plants, trees found in a particular area. And that is how she wanted to restore the land and to rehabilitate the forest. We have already discussed this word rehabilitate, means to bring something back to its original and healthy state. She wanted to bring the forest to their natural, healthy state. Well, that's the end of part 1 of the lesson Environment. I hope you have understood everything that I have discussed. Please like this video, share and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done yet. And I'll see you in my next video. Thank you.